Today I want to give you my top 5 5-star weapons. There are also 5 weapon classes, so I think it's a good idea to pick each one once and maybe give another honorable mention to have a little more to talk about. 5-star weapons compared to 4-star weapons obviously have higher base stats, but a lot of them also have a second substat a little inconspicuously written in the beginning of the effect description. So just so we are on the same page, when talking about these weapons I will mention the base attack, then substats, however many there are, and then the actual effect. By the way, this weapon here might even deserve a spot on this list. I think it's great, but since I used it here for this example, I won't reuse it. With that being said, let's get started. Catalysts. I'm not gonna lie, both catalysts as weapons and catalyst characters aren't exactly impressive. The one I decided on is Kagura's Variety Yaemiko's weapon. 608 base attack, 66% crit damage, and the effect is after using the elemental skill, you gain 12% elemental skill damage for 12 seconds. This buff stacks up to 3 times, and when you reach the third stack, you also gain 12% elemental damage bonus. It ramps up pretty slowly, so it's not a weapon that is very good for quick burst damage, but in long fights it provides consistent high damage, which is only possible thanks to the buff staying active even when the character is off field. Kagura's Variety works obviously great on Yaemiko, but you can also use it on Yanfei and a Constellation 2 Ningguang, since you can play them in a way that allows you to reach 3 stacks and keep them up permanently. As for honorable mentions, I actually think for this category it's not even worth giving one. If you have other 5-star catalysts, good for you, but if you see them on a weapon banner, I think you probably don't want to touch it. You have some weapons looking good on paper, like Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds, but it takes 16 seconds for the effect to completely ramp up, and when you switch to another character, it resets. So in other words, putting that effect to some good use in actual combat is pretty unrealistic. In my opinion, it's a pretty bad weapon. Claymores. Claymores, I guess, are okay-ish, and the character cast is okay-ish, so we do have some options here which are okay-ish at best. The one I decided on is Song of Broken Pines, Eula's weapon. 741 base attack, which is incredibly high, 16% attack and 20% physical damage bonus, which is pretty low, so you wouldn't waste too many stats if it isn't used on a physical unit. And the effect grants you 12% attack speed and another 20% attack for 12 seconds after you land 4 normal or charge attacks. This effect has 20 seconds cooldown, so you can't have 100% uptime. Basically, after it runs out, you have 8 seconds downtime. Most characters can make use of Song of Broken Pines, with the exception of Ito and Noelle, and it's obviously especially good on Eula and Razor. As for honorable mentions, it's the Redhorn Stone Thrasher, Ito's weapon. 542 base attack, quite low, 88% crit damage, quite high, 28% defense, and the effect is normal and charge attack damage is increased by 40% of your character's defense. For this weapon, I think pretty much everyone can use it, and it's especially good on Ito and Noelle. The reason why I didn't pick this weapon, not a lot of people play Noelle, so you kind of pit Eula against Ito, which is pretty even, so we take Diluc and other 4-star characters into consideration. For these, the high base attack of Song of Broken Pines is great, and Claymore characters are usually slow, so the attack speed scales really well on them. Bows. There are some good bows and also a decent amount of good characters, but they are all very different, which makes it kind of hard to have a weapon that fits them all. With one exception, Skyward Harp. Maybe Venti's weapon, though it wasn't on the weapon banner when he first released. 608 base attack, 22% crit rate, 20% crit damage, and the effect is a little bit of physical AoE damage over 4 seconds. It's basically a stat stick, good attack with some crit rate and crit damage, things pretty much every character needs. With that, I pretty much already said it. This weapon can literally be used on any character who is supposed to deal damage. Commonly used on Child, but even on a character like Yelan, who is arguably the worst choice for this weapon, it still deals about as much damage as a Refinement 5 Stringless on her. As for honorable mentions, it's the Polar Star. I don't remember well, but I think it was released as Child's weapon during one of his reruns. 608 base attack, 33% crit rate, 12% elemental skill and burst skill damage, and the effect is after you hit with an elemental skill, burst skill, normal or charge attack, you get 10 20, 30, or 48% attack for 12 seconds, depending on how many of those four conditions you fulfilled. I think quite a few characters can use it, even supports who realistically will only get 20% attack from this effect. Like I said earlier, quite a few bows are good and they are all kind of close, so this category is kind of the hardest. That's why I cheated and sneaked in a third option in the beginning of the video. Polearms. Polearms are pretty good, but the main reason they made it so far is the character roster is pretty stacked. Raiden, Hu Tao, Zhangling, Zhongli, even Rosaria has her moments, so getting a 5-star polearm is worth it. The one I decided on is, big surprise, Staff of Homer, Hu Tao's weapon. 608 base attack, 66% crit damage, 20% HP, and the effect is the attack is increased based off 0.8% of a character's max HP. And if the character is currently below 50% HP, the attack modifier goes up to 1.8% of max HP. So again, another stat stick. I'm not gonna lie, you will probably see a pattern from here on out. Literally every character can use this weapon. It's great for HP scaling characters like Zhongli and Hu Tao, but since Hu Tao has kind of fake HP scaling, it's even good on attack scaling characters. As for honorable mentions, it's the Primordial Jade-Winged Spear, Zhao's weapon. 674 base attack, 22% crit rate, and the effect is your active character gets 3.2% attack on hit for 6 seconds, which stacks up 7 times, and at 7 stacks you will also gain a 12% elemental damage bonus. Just to clarify, on hit means literally every instance of damage. Normal, charged, plunging attacks, elemental skills, and burst skills. This is a very attack heavy weapon, so it's basically great on everyone except for Zhongli. The main thing though is the effect persists when the character leaves the field, but you can't trigger it off field, so you can't press Zhongling skills and gain stacks while you are on another character. Otherwise, I would have chosen this weapon over Staff of Homer. Swords. For swords, it's pretty much the other way around. The character cast is good, Ayato, Kazuha, and of course Ayaka, but the spear category is slightly more impressive. This video is about weapons though, and there are some amazing swords. This is honestly rough, but I don't want to give a cop-out answer, so the one I decided on is Mistsplitter Reforged, Ayaka's weapon. 674 base attack, 44% crit damage, 12% elemental damage bonus, and the effect works similar to the way Polar Star works. After your active character deals elemental damage with normal attacks, uses the elemental burst skill, and the energy isn't full, then you get 8, 16 or 28% elemental bonus damage depending on how many conditions you fulfill. Most characters can make great use of this weapon, even support characters can just press the elemental burst skill and get 16% elemental bonus damage. The effect persists while the character is off field, which is why it even works great in this case. As for honorable mentions, it's the Primordial Jade Cutter, ironically enough released during Kaching's banner in patch 1.3. 542 base attack, quite low, 44% crit rate, quite high, 20% HP, and the effect is the attack is increased by 1.2% of the character's max HP. So this weapon is literally the definition of a stat stick. The only thing it gives you is a bunch of numbers unconditionally. It has very high crit rate, so it's useful to every character. The reason I didn't choose it over Mistsplitter is Ayaka's weapon is obviously amazing on herself, and possibly also the best weapon on Ayato and Kaching, while the only characters where it's significantly outperformed by the Jade Cutter are Shinobu and Albedo, who to be fair also has a 3-star option, which is better than both of these weapons for him. So just to say it clearly, in my opinion, Mistsplitter Reforged is the best weapon to get in Genshin Impact. 5-star weapons are quite a big investment, especially with the pity system on the weapon banner being kind of a scam. So the main qualification one of these weapons must have, in my opinion, is it needs to be useful to a lot of characters. If a weapon is great on one character but bad on 10, then I don't think it's a great weapon overall. For example, Amos's bow is great for Ganyu, but if you don't have her, you probably aren't too happy with that weapon. So as you might have realized, this list ended up with a lot of weapons with crit rate or crit damage because these stats just universally work for everyone, whether it's attack, HP, or defense scaling characters. Yes, I know there is Kokomi. Aside from this, again, 5-star weapons have higher base stats, so I think they are mainly meant for DPS or sub DPS characters. I don't think it's worth getting one for most support characters who aren't meant to deal significant damage. There are some exceptions, but I generally give more importance to weapons which fit a lot of DPS characters first. Alright, with that, we made it to the end. I hope this was enjoyable. Let me know if you agree, disagree, or if you feel like other weapons were more deserving of it. Anyway, that's it. Stay tuned for more videos. Until then, have fun and bye bye.